Frank Vogel has proven that he's a very good coach. We remember back in Indiana where he gave LeBron's big three with LeBron, D-Wade, and Chris Bosh in Miami all they wanted in 2 straight Eastern Conference Finals. And Vogel's weapons, a big three of Lance Stevenson, David West, and Paul George. Or you can throw in Roy Hibbert, however you want to work it. But that was his arsenal. And he gave them all they wanted. We obviously saw a couple of years ago that Vogel guided these Lakers, to a championship. I feel like him being fired would be the front office protecting itself and scapegoating Vogel for putting together a bad roster, an ill-fitting roster, okay? All of us knew, once we heard the rumors that they're looking at Russell Westbrook in the trade, we all were like, what? Like, I was like, there's no way this is happening. It doesn't make any sense. And I wasn't alone, all right? So they brought in Westbrook. Now they're old. All right, Vogel's teams have always been great defensively. Even when he was in Orlando where he didn't have good teams, they were in near the top 10 defensively. But you gave him an old roster that's really incapable of playing great defense consistently, like for long stretches of time because of their age. And then LeBron, whenever he's won championships, we all know the formula. He's had shooters around him. And you gave him a roster that really doesn't have much shooting at all. Not to mention, they haven't been healthy. LeBron and Anthony Davis have played 15 games together. They are 8-7 in those games. No, that's not great. But only 15 games together. And you're going to fire him? And here's the last thing, Wilds. Where are you going? All right? I mean, it's doubtful, not impossible, but doubtful that you would bring a coach in from the outside. So you promote David Fizdale right there on your staff. They were 1-5 when Frank Vogel was out with COVID protocol and Fizdale was running the team. So a new voice isn't necessarily going to do it. I would like to see them, you know what? Empower Frank Vogel. Tell your players, look, this is our coach.
Wow.
We're going to win or we're going to lose with him. That just like Pat Riley empowered Eric Spoelstra when Miami, a lot of their players wanted to get rid of him in the first year of the Big Three. Riley stuck behind him, and you saw what happened. And whilst I get it can get so bad at a certain point that you just got to do something and you got to get rid of the coach. But at 22-22, with AD on his way back, I don't think we're at that point just yet.
Okay, so I think the empowering the coach idea is fantastic. And if that didn't happen and I was Frank Vogel, I would elegantly quit. I'm like, this is not for me. I'm a big rip the Band-Aid guy off, Nick. I would quit. I would be somewhere between somewhere between David Gettleman retiring and Magic Johnson surprisingly saying, I'm not going to be here and laughing in the Lakers corridor. Somewhere between there, that's where I would be. And here's why. I do not think, Nick, that you can coach and be effective on a game-to-game basis. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care if you're making calzones. If you're on a calzone to calzone basis, your calzones are going to come out terrible. It's about respect too. They won the championship 15 months ago. LeBron got up there in front of the world, said Lakers organization wants his respect, Rob wants his respect, Vogel wants his respect, and I want my darn respect too. That was 15 months? You rehauled a roster and you took away your shooters and your defense? What do you want him to do? If Rob Pelinka stacked the roster with a team that he thinks can win, I think it's Frank Vogel's responsibility to try some things out. And it obviously hasn't worked. And now I don't think you can try anything out if you're on a game-to-game basis. So if I was Frank Vogel, I would elegantly quit and say, you know what? Time to rip the Band-Aid off, Magic Johnson.
Wow.
I'm not going to be here. I'm out.
Okay.
Band-Aid off.
You guys all said interesting things. Aside from reciting Vogel's resume from 3 jobs and 8 years ago, what I didn't hear a lot of, here's what I love about Frank Vogel. Here's what Frank Vogel, since the championship, has done great. Hold on, I'm just curious. I didn't know that in sports we were able to coast off past accomplishments. That's a new thing. Would we all agree the Lakers underachieved last year? I would. Would we all agree they are underachieving greatly
had some injuries
this year? Yeah, I still think even with the injuries, the 7 seed and being in the play-in was something of an underachievement. Would we all agree that the most important player that Vogel needs to get through to and get the most out of is Anthony Davis, and on that front, he has failed? Would we all agree on that? Like, LeBron is going to be
I don't
LeBron.
agree on that.
Well, you don't?
I don't
okay.
agree on that.
So, okay.
That's
so,
Anthony Davis.
So, I'm just curious.
That's on Anthony Davis.
Oh, come on. You can
It's
do
not on
it.
Vogel.
Come on.
The first year
Okay,
together,
well, then,
he got
then
the
who cares
most out
if
of
they
AD.
fire him?
And they won a championship.
Okay, so
they got the most
coach
out of
doesn't
AD
matter.
and they won a championship.
Okay, so right, and I'm talking about again. I'm having the very short view of the last 2 seasons. That's all. Just a longer, just the same period of time that Tom Brady's been a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. That's what I'm evaluating it off of. So here is what I think, because Wilds, I read your tweets. I don't love them,
thank you.
but I read them. And a lot of this is like, it's just layered with, LeBron, who put this roster together, now they're going to scapegoat another coach, without ever actually saying what Vogel has done post-title to not deserve to be on the hot seat. Everyone involved with the Lakers should be uneasy, except for maybe the 37-year-old who's going to win the scoring title. Everyone else should feel like, gosh darn it, I could be traded, I could be fired. The idea that Frank Vogel's, like it's an insult that a guy who needed a dozen games to figure out you can't play Rondo and Westbrook at the same time, who needed even longer to figure out DeAndre Jordan is fossilized, that guy should just be a made man, it's a little odd to me. And Broussard, I want to ask you this. Why didn't Frank Vogel empower himself? LeBron James doesn't have a gun to this organization's head. LeBron James signed a contract extension a year ago after the championship. 3 years left on his deal. Goes into this year with 2 years left on his deal. That is an argument that Pelinka, if Pelinka didn't think Russ would work, but LeBron wanted it, Pelinka could have said, okay, doesn't matter. I'm the GM. You can't call the trade in. And if Vogel, thought Laker film room and silver screen and roll figured out 6 minutes into the season that playing centers is a bad idea, then don't play centers. Tell Pelinka, you gave me the roster. I watched Moneyball. Hey, you pick the roster. I fill out the lineup card, buddy. Like some of this, Frank Vogel is a grown-ass man who just got a contract extension. Are the lineups not his call? Is the ability to look Anthony Davis in the eye and say, you have not played up to your standard. We need more out of you. He's not allowed to do that. If he's not allowed to do that, then he's not the right guy. If he is allowed to do that and he hasn't done it, then why hasn't he? Tell me. Just tell me. Tell me
but
what.
How do you
what
know he hasn't had those conversations with AD? And look, Nick, they gave clearly when they put this roster together, the plan was to play big. All right, and in fact, there was a story the other day that Kurt Rambis talked to the coaching staff about maybe we should play big and try to, be the biggest team in the league. Right. So I don't have a problem with Vogel when I've got a LeBron James, when I've got an Anthony Davis, which gives me room for error. I don't mind experimenting with lineups. I got to see what works. So I don't have a problem with experimenting with the DeAndre Jordan and Dwight Howard at center. But now he's come to the conclusion so far that when AD gets back, he will be the center. All right. I think that's big enough, personally. Anthony Davis and LeBron James on your front line. In today's NBA, big enough. So I hear you. You are right in that I'm not saying there's no chance Vogel could be fired a little later in the season if things really go south. But they're 22-22. Their second best player has been out almost half the season, and he's on his way back.
I'm fine with that.
Give them a chance to play together before you get rid of him. Because last year, Nick, I disagree. I thought they looked pretty good when AD and LeBron were able to play together. And then they both got hurt at different times, and that's when it fell off the rail. So I don't think he's underachieved as a coach the last couple years. They've just had a run of bad luck, and now it's a bad roster.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.